A new Australian film is releasing in cinemas right now, a film called Fwends. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the writer-director of Fwends, Sophie Somerville. Sophie, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Good to talk to you. And I know that you've done three short films previously, which have been acclaimed. What was the road to making this first feature film for you?
So this film was made super micro nano budget, so we didn't apply through the funding system or sort of do the sort of normal standard route. We sort of just decided that we wanted to basically make a short film that was long. So we just gathered together the sort of a similar crew that I've worked with my previous shorts, and just sort of worked with the really minuscule budget that we had, but sort of tried to just think really, really creatively and use the available locations in the Melbourne CBD and in our apartment and sort of just film, yeah, make a movie with our friends. Yeah, pretty much.
Fair enough. Okay, that's as good a process as any. So well done on that. Um, so tell me, this is about two women who meet up, spend 24 hours together, etc. in Melbourne. Was the film scripted or was it improvised? How did all that work?
Yeah, so with my shorts, I'd sort of experimented with doing some scenes that were partially improvised, and with this one, I decided to we just fully improvised the film. So we shot basically in chronological order, and then we just sort of filmed day by day. I sort of had like a treatment sort of sketch that was very rough and was just sort of like, this is maybe they'll talk about this in this scene, maybe they'll talk about that, but it was always pretty open. And then when we started filming with Melissa and Emmanuel, we sort of just let the story guide us. So we would just be like, oh, that unexpected thing happened. That's cool. Okay, let's film the next scene and incorporate that into the story. So it was this really magical filming process. Sort of like a fictional documentary is what I say to people sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, really interesting process. So well done on that. And shooting in Melbourne, and using Melbourne locations and so on, was all of that mapped out in advance, or was all of that also pretty improvised that the two women walked wherever?
We had a pretty, like we sort of, Carter and I, we did a lot of location recce's and sort of came up with a list of places that we ideally would like to shoot. But then because we were shooting in the city, unexpected things would happen and there'd be things that we didn't know and people walking in places that we didn't like. And so we'd be like, okay, we'll go over here instead. So there was sort of a mixture of a plan and then also a very loose approach where we were kind of quite flexible.
Ah, again, so interesting. And I was wondering as I was watching the film about the sound design, because I gather you didn't post sync the dialogue. It was all recorded.
No.
It was all
Mm.
live. Okay, so how did that work? Because it's really crystal clear sound. How did you, how were you able to manage that?
Yeah, so I worked with some super talented sound recorders who I'd worked with on a previous short film, and they figured out that because we were shooting with a really long lens, they had to extend the range of the radio mics. So we had a sort of range extender that meant that they could be quite far away and we'd still pick up their lapel mic audio. So it's, I mean, they did a brilliant job because yeah, if you're saying that it's crystal clear, that's awesome. Um, yeah, so yeah, we just it's all raw sound. The film just has a very raw feeling to it. But yeah, which has worked out, I think, because it conveys a rawness that we like.
Yes, yeah, no, that it was really quite compelling and worked really well. And I was intrigued as to how the story developed between these two women and their backgrounds and their hopes and dreams and all of that sort of thing. So, and I noticed you introduced some other aspects, sort of experimental type stuff and a few other things, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun kind of problem solving around I won't give away the super experimental part, what happens exactly, because you should come see the film.
Yeah.
But sort of thought of a creative way to show that moment using a slightly different filming style, and it was very fun. It was very creative.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, really interesting. Tell me about Emmanuel and Melissa, your two stars. You said you've worked with them previously, and they really worked well together, I thought.
Yeah, so Melissa and I made a short film together a couple of years ago before we made Fwends. And then Emmanuel, I hadn't worked with before, but she was a friend of a friend, and I was a fan of her work because she's a wonderful, she slash they use both pronouns. They're a wonderful playwright, who made a play called Trophy Boys. And so I sort of knew that I wanted to work with them. And yeah, they just had such an incredible chemistry together. Like I knew they'd be awesome together, but then when we started filming, they were even more awesome. Their chemistry was just they were just so funny together. So it became a fun process in the edit deciding which take to use because they were all great takes.
Well, let's talk about that because I gather the whole thing wasn't shot in 24 hours. Obviously, it was done
Mm.
with different sequences at different times. How did that process work for you?
Yeah, so because we were working with a micro budget, we were sort of working around people's availability. So we shot 5 days and then we had a month off and then we shot another 5 days. So in that month in between, it was actually great because I was in this middle phase where I was sort of starting to cut together the first half of the film and then also figuring out the second half. And so it gave us a lot of, even though we were working around that as a constraint, it actually, I think, really benefited the film because it gave me this moment in between to kind of sit with what I was making and really figure it out. Yeah.
Okay. Again, really
Mhm.
interesting to hear all that. Now, tell me why the title Fwends?
Yeah. Um, So when it started out, it was just this story of these two friends, and I was like, oh, friends, that's cute, and I just put that as the title as like a placeholder, and then it just stuck, and everyone making the film was like, friends, it's a great title. It's like, yeah, I guess okay, it is. But then it's been an interesting time because then when the film played in Europe and stuff, they were like, I do not know this word. And I was like, yeah, well, it means friends, but it's a cute way of saying friends. And they were like, oh, okay, okay. So there's like whole new communities of people who are now learning this word. So
Oh
it's
my
funny.
goodness. I could see it getting into the dictionary as a new word, Fwends, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Europe and you won a Caligari Film Award at the Berlinale this year. Now that was quite an experience. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was we played in the forum section, which is a section of Berlinale for very exciting kind of boundary pushing sort of innovative films. And it was like we were so humbled to be part of that because like they have films from all over the world. And then it unexpectedly won this really nice award. And they wrote this incredibly beautiful jury statement that just saw into the heart of the film in this really deep way, and it was very touching. And then we had a ceremony that was all in German, and we were sitting there being like, oh, yeah, like saying German things to each other, and then they handed us some flowers. Yeah, it was great.
Okay, you'd think they'd subtitle it or at least translate for you or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So, um, look, excellent stuff. Shooting in Melbourne, just going back to that, because again, you highlight so many great places in Melbourne, which perhaps a lot of Melburnians don't necessarily traverse or recognize or whatever. Did you also have any issues with someone from the council or someone sort of stepping in and saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be shooting here," or "You need a permit," or anything like that?
We sort of just worked around a filming permit regulation that the City of Melbourne has, which is for ultra low filming. So if you have less than 6 people on the crew, then it's considered ultra low impact. So we just worked around that. Um, so yeah, we were obviously very, very careful about not shooting in places where we would block traffic or intervene in people's lives. So we were very yeah, it was a stressful way to make a film, but it did add so much to the like landscape and the sort of
Hmm.
texture of each scene, having all these free extras wandering around. Yeah.
It's excellent. I can just see these two Fwends going to other capital cities or other places and filming a similar sort of story, or perhaps an extension, part two Fwends and part three.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we do fantasize about doing part two when they're like way older. It'd be so good. I'd love to do it. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That's really interesting to hear all that. Um, okay, so what's next for you? Because I'm sure you're looking now to make more films.
Yeah, yeah. I'm working on another feature film now, which is going to be made through the pipeline of film funding, Screen Australia, all that jazz. So TBC, yeah, I hope, I want to be able to carry through all of the like cool improvisational, spontaneous filmmaking sort of styles that we discovered in Fwends and sort of carry that through into a more kind of professionalized filmmaking context. Yeah.
Ah, excellent. And of course, Fwends is part of the actor judging screenings at the moment, which I'm ploughing through.
Mm.
So well
Oh,
done.
nice.
Yeah, so well done on being part of that. And the film is now releasing in Australian cinemas, and so it'd be interesting to see what response you get.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the actors is crazy. That's the whole thing that would be awesome. So yeah, if you're an actor listener, actor voter, consider Friends, give us a vote. We'd love it. Yeah.
I love that title, Fwends. Yes, I know. Okay, you have a Fwenty going to see Fwends. Anyway, it's fine. So, Sophie, I'm intrigued. Were there any particular films or filmmakers that might influence you in terms of your filmmaking style?
With this film, I was really influenced by sort of the French New Wave and also the Czech New Wave, sort of a film called Daisies, which is this awesome film about these two women being quite transgressive and hanging out and doing unpredictable, spontaneous, weird shit. And which is a really cool film. And then also just, I mean, yeah, people have compared the film to Before Sunrise a lot, and sort of Linklater's vibe. And then also, what else have people mentioned? Francis Ha's been mentioned. Yeah, sort of quite a wide range of sort of films. Yeah, but to be honest, when I was making it, I wasn't kind of directly trying to imitate another style. I was trying to just do our own thing. Yeah.
Fair enough. Look, congratulations
Mhm.
on the film. It's really quite a an intriguing and compelling film, and I was wondering what how these two women would end up. Whether there was going to be some other dramatic point, but it actually flows very nicely, and so well done on the film.
Oh, thanks very much.
I assume with the editing process, because you said you spent 5 days, then another 5 days later, that in itself was a bit of a task for you.
Yeah, I mean it was a real challenge. Like the whole making of the film was pretty challenging because we were working at the time and yeah, having to like figure it out around regular life. So yeah, it was super challenging, but it was also at the same time awesome to have a creative project that we were so in control of, and that was totally kind of yeah, just sort of we didn't have a big supervising entity telling us how to make the film. We were just doing what we wanted to do.
Okay. And yes, I wanted to ask you about music that you use in the film. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the music is Chopin and what's the other piece of music that I use? It's a lot of it is this one Chopin piece of music that I use in different that I sort of reinterpret and use in different instruments. And I sort of fell in love with using classical music, not just because it's in the public domain and it's cheaper, but also because it's just very nice and it's very beautiful and it adds like a tone of grandeur and majesty to these moments. And so yeah, I've worked with a composer and he did some versions of this one Chopin piece of music and he added sort of all these like interesting synthesizers and interesting kind of freaky noises to the piece of music. And yeah, it's great. I love it. I love the music in the film.
Oh, it works well for me. I really like
Mm.
the use of classical music. And tell me about the cinematography, because keeping the camera focused and in shot all the time, having the two women there all the time, and people around, etc., that must have been quite difficult for a cinematographer.
Yeah, like it was a real Carter Looker who I worked with previously. We sort of had an agreement, which was that he would be quite free to improvise, and so would the actors. So while we were shooting, he would sometimes start zooming, even if we hadn't discussed it, and I'd just feel like, okay, we're going to do that. But he's got incredible instincts, and I think the story, the sort of the way the movie flows is so much because of the way the cinematography kind of knows instinctively when to push in and when to pull out and sort of um how to sort of create space and then sort of shrink the space and sort of how that kind of matches the intensity of the moments that they're having. So yeah, we had so much fun using the zoom lens because it's just a fun way to make a film.
Look, well done on all of that. It's a really excellent achievement, and we've been speaking to Sophie Somerville, who's the writer director of Fwends, now screening in Australian cinemas. Sophie, pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay, all the best. Bye
Bye.
bye.